had Tyler on it up until like 10 minutes ago. And I think it said prize picks as well. Mike, I need like what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL Showdown Strategy Show, presented by No House Advantage. I'm Dave Loughran at _D on the Twitters, breaking down a little Raiders and Rams action, a team that at this point, lucky to be in the NFL. Reigning NFL champs, 6.5-point home dogs with I mean, they're signing Baker Mayfield. So that tells you all you need to know about this team right now. But joining me today, as always, to break down both teams and go through some lineup construction for this one game, single game showdown, whatever. Matt Gajewski at Matt_Gajewski. Woo, what's going on, man? This should be fun once we get to the Rams.
Yeah, the Rams are a really fun team. Not for the same reasons as like an Eagles. They actually take the opposite approach when you look at draft building, and the NFL draft is supposed to be the great equalizer. Instead of actually drafting players, the Rams trade all of their picks, go for these old veterans, hit the lotto that they all stayed healthy last year and won a Super Bowl. And now we're seeing the exact opposite. And what happens if even a few guys get injured, it just turns into an XFL roster, which is what we have here. But Showdown, thank goodness we got this on a Showdown because we can actually play guys from both these teams.
It is funny, though, because you're looking at like, all right, Lance McCutcheon was out last week. He played 48% of snaps the previous week, was targeted 4 times. Brandon Powell might not play with an illness. So, and you're talking Ben Skoranek, Van Jefferson probably plays every snap in this game. Tutu Atwell, Tyler Higbee, who's been a complete non-factor over the last 1+ months. It's going to be fun. So we'll talk about all that. I think it's a little bit more straightforward with the Las Vegas Raiders, though. Matter of fact, the Raiders are. Is it wrong for me to say, Matt, that right now with the current with the current landscape in the NFL, the Raiders are one of the most straightforward teams in the league from a DFS perspective?
Yeah, I think so. And we've had a pretty clear sample of what they're going to do week in, week out. They haven't had any drastic injuries. Josh Jacobs has been banged up, but he's been playing through it. So no real questions there. Rams are the exact opposite. I mean, if we look at all of their players that get snaps on offense, how many of them would be on a team like the Bills? 2? Like, they're literally fielding 9 starters that are practice squad level guys. Van Jefferson would be on the Bills team. He would not be a starter, and maybe one of their linemen in Higbee, 2 or 3.
That's it. Yeah.
The rest maybe wouldn't even be on like the Bills practice squad, the Eagles practice squad. Go look at a good team. That's how poorly this Rams team is built.
You're right. Like Ben Skoranek on the Eagles would be behind Zach Pascal. Like
he's not on the Eagles. He's on the Eagles practice squad. He sucks.
For sure. Van Jefferson, there's still some hope there. Like I think Van Jefferson's a fine, 4 or 5, but you're right. Like a lot of these guys are not on an active roster. And hold on a second. What about quarterbacks? Like,
right.
Right. I mean, Baker Mayfield is not a starting quarterback at this rate. I don't even think most teams would feel comfortable with him as their backup quarterback. And now he was just signed on Tuesday.
And John Wolford played in the AAF. He is literally one of those players. That's where he came from. Was he on the Salt Lake Stallions and he wasn't good there? And now he's, for some reason, Les Snead has thought he was good enough to be the Rams backup for 4 years now. And luckily they haven't needed him, but they do now. And
who's the all-time? Yeah, they certainly do. Who's the all-time leading touchdown holder for the AAF?
That was PJ Walker was in the XFL.
No, not a quarterback. Sorry.
Trent Richardson.
Yep. Got it. Remember before the league just shut down out of nowhere and stranded these players at hotel rooms, how he was crushing every week?
Yeah, he was getting like 30 carries a game for 3 yards a carry and just scoring touchdowns. Off his volume.
Yeah. He had 12 touchdowns.
Yeah, man. I was playing DFS on that on the Pirate sites.
Man, that was fun.
Yeah,
I was all about the XFL myself, but
hey, it's coming back, man. And we're going to have coverage for it. Guaranteed.
It was very fun to bet. It was very fun to bet the NFL or the XFL. But yeah, I'm looking. Trent Richardson scored in every single week. Every single week he had a touchdown. What a stud.
Birmingham Iron, right?
Yes. Yeah. Birmingham Iron.
Go Iron.
The problem though with the what was the one that would not the XFL? What was the one that just happened?
The USFL.
I get that you have to cut costs, but the fact that every game was played at the same stadium means that no fan base is ever going to gain even a little bit of an allegiance to these teams because they can't go and watch them. You can't go enjoy. I think every game was in Birmingham, as a matter of fact. You can't really enjoy that.
Right. And I mean, I'll go to like low level games. Like in Milwaukee, we have like the Milwaukee Admirals. They're the feeder team or the minor league team, whatever you want to call it, for the National Predators. Me and my friends go to those games. In Wisconsin, basically all they do is they have some sort of ticket, which involves an all you can eat, all you can drink package. And then the games are actually popular.
Exactly.
And that might be cheap. Wisconsin. All you can drink is really enticing. A lot of people like that.
They're so cheap though. The games are it's so cheap to attend, but you have 17 people at what were they? The Philadelphia Stars game because nobody cares. But NFL, we've had some bad games this year. Doesn't matter. We still watch them. We still bet them. We still play DFS. We still get in showdown action. And that's what makes it fun. You could look at this game and go like your regular casual football fan that doesn't, bet or do anything outside of maybe like one friends and family or office league fantasy football league. Listen, I'm not staying up to watch this game, but us, we're a different breed. We're gonna win some money today, and we're gonna watch the Raiders take on the AAF Rams here. Or what did you say? Did you say AAF or CFL?
AAF.
Okay, CFL would be too kind. I think
way too kind.
Way too kind. All right, let's talk about it. Happy to have you guys with us as always. We love doing this show every Monday and Thursday morning with you guys and you hanging out with us. So hit that thumbs up if you appreciate this content. It helps us a ton. Subscribe to the channel. And if you're listening after the fact, leave a comment down below. Let us know what you think of the game, the show, whatever's on your mind. We're open to it. And if you're on a podcast, we know you're out there. Subscribe to the pod, leave a rating, review. All that stuff is appreciated. And tell your friends. Tell your friends about the strategy show, baby. Let's go. Anthony Marcus says, hey, Laffy, my Giants are taking y'all down this weekend. I mean, look, anything's possible, man. You guys are not nearly close to half as good a team as we are, as the Eagles. I hate saying we because I have nothing to do with this team, but you're not, I mean, you're not a good football team, but it's a home game in East Rutherford, Matt, and divisional games can sometimes get weird, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And that team has been surprisingly good compared to what the talent they actually have.
Good. Oh, they've performed well in the results.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Brian Dable puts that practice squad caliber of team into a lot of positions to win. So
Shots fired.
Yeah. Once he gets some real talent, I'm excited to see what they're going to do. I do not think they have a chance this week.
He's a good coach though.
Yeah, he is.
Like if it were, who was it last year? Joe Judge.
Yes.
If it were Joe Judge, this team, I'm not even kidding. Probably a 1 or 2 win team right now.
100%.
Right? Like, I don't even think that's a hyperbolic statement. Probably a 1 or 2 team, or 1 or 2 win team.
Whose receivers are better, the Rams or the Giants?
Without
right now,
Wandell,
as it stands, not including Cooper Kupp.
And not including Wandell Robinson. So anybody that's like, okay, I would say the Giants just because Steve Slayton's actually not that bad.
Yeah, I think so too.
Right? Like he's not good, but he's not bad either. So yeah, what are we talking? Slayton, Richie James, Isaiah Hodgins.
Yeah.
It's bad, but it's still the Giants.
Yeah, and it's that versus Ben Skowronek, Van Jefferson, Brandon Powell, Tutu Atwell, Lance McCutcheon. I think it's the Giants.
What if Daniel Jones was the Rams quarterback right now, though?
Well, he can run.
That's true.
So
can Bryce Perkins, and that didn't end particularly well.
No, bro, I love Bryce.
But Daniel
Perkins.
Jones is better than Perkins.
I love Bryce Perkins. He's a college football hero, but unfortunately, it didn't work for him in the NFL.
He's had some fun preseason games, though.
Man. He was awesome in college, too.
Dude, Sean McVay 2 years ago started Bryce Perkins in every game and played him for 4 quarters in every single game.
Oh, yeah. Those were the days. That was amazing.
Awesome.
It was like college all over again, and he was running all over the place.
Yeah. Like your backup quarterback, your top backup quarterback didn't play a snap all preseason. McVay just doesn't care. I don't know. Anyway, let's talk about the Raiders. Let's get into it. 6.5 point favorites, 25 point total. Now, I am on record, Matt, saying that I believe the Raiders are the best team with a losing record in football. Now, I'm not saying that's a hot take or anything, and the Lions might have something to say about that because they look damn good right now. But I am of the belief, and I have been of the belief all season, that the Raiders, despite squandering multiple, I think 3 double-digit leads, giving up they still have a potent offense. They still have, from a fantasy standpoint, one of the best concentrations of opportunities in the league, one of the best running back, maybe the best running back in the league right now with how he's playing, and one of the best, most preeminent receivers in Devontae Adams. So they've won 2 straight, I think 2 or 3 straight. They're playing better football right now. I obviously like them to come in and take care of business today. They've won 3 straight, actually. But we have to start, and I'm not even going to go position by position. We have to start with Adams and Jacobs and just talk about roster construction here because they're both very expensive, but they're also monsters. Like since Renfro and Waller both hit the IR. But when they both stopped playing after week 9, Devontae Adams has a 36% target share on this team. And Josh Jacobs, you look at his volume, insane volume on the ground, but also over a 15% target share over that stretch. Can't make this up, man. These are 2 of the most voluminous players from an opportunity standpoint in the entire league, and they're on the same damn team.
Yeah, it's insane. Josh Jacobs, I think, is what a lot of people thought Jonathan Taylor would be this year. So the role is incredible. And for DFS purposes, in cash games, low risk contests, anything that doesn't have a ton of entries in the field, you're captaining one of these 2 guys. Just flat out, that's the answer. There's no one else you can even consider. Derek Carr, maybe once the field starts getting a little larger, but you're not captaining anyone on the Rams. which creates a really unique environment for large field tournaments, because at what point are they to own for a large field? In small field, you just play one of the two in the captain. That's the end of the story. But I like looking back on our tools, and it's crazy to see how often these guys are optimal, even in the captain spot. But for large field tournaments, this is where I think you can get away from them. They're slightly negatively leveraged in the captain. This is Josh Jacobs and Davante Adams, and this is specifically for large field, but they have a ton of positive leverage in the flex. So I'm right now, as it stands this morning, we'll see how the day plays out. My plan for small field tournaments for cash is just to lock in Davante Adams and Josh Jacobs, mix and match those two as the captains. And then for large field, anything like 100,000 entries or more, then start to deviate a little bit away from that. Get to your Derek Carrs and some of the ancillary pass catchers, but they're the two of the best plays in all the NFL right now.
Two things just to get your response here. One, with how bad the Rams are and how you can do a million different things, like a lot of times you get a game where you go, man, it's just impossible to get these two guys into good lineups. Well, in a situation like this, it's not, because once you get past them, there aren't really any players that you feel like you're really missing out on. So there's a million different ways you can go here, be it kickers or, how much is the Raiders defense?
It's at 5,200.
Okay. Still very viable. I don't think I want to have any lineups without Jacobs and both Jacobs and Adams, not all in the captain spot, which leads me to the next question. And of course you can, because maybe one of them gets hurt or something like that. Understandable. But does Mac Hollins not make a pretty decent amount of sense at the captain spot in large field tournaments where you're talking about a guy who has a 21% target share since Hunter Renfrow and Waller both hit the IR, and is the clear second option in this passing game? And then once you get past him, it's like Jacobs and nobody else.
Yeah, I think you could use Mac Hollins in the captain spot. The question is, it's like, who's going to be that third most owned captain? And I personally think it's probably going to be Derek Carr, but then who's four? Do we think it's anybody on the Rams? Do we think it's like Foster Moreau, a really deep pass catcher? I think Mac Hollins is going to be the fourth most owned captain. So I'm curious what you think about just like the pecking order of who people prefer once we get beyond Davante Adams and Josh Jacobs. I think it goes Carr, then Mac Hollins, honestly. Like, it's not going to be a Ram.
We have John Walford as the fourth highest owned captain, and then Mac Hollins. We have Mac Hollins at 4.7 at captain, same as the Raiders, basically the same as Van Jefferson. That doesn't seem that high for a guy that, two of his last 4 games, he's had 9 targets. 2 of his last 3 games, he's had 9 targets.
Yeah. And I'm not sure I agree with the John Wolford projection. This will get updated throughout the day, but 3 hours ago, NFL reporter Tom Pelissero reported new Rams quarterback Baker Mayfield is expected to be active tonight versus the Raiders, and there's a real chance he plays per sources.
Yep.
His role will depend in part on how John Wolford, questionable with the neck, is feeling. Mayfield got in Tuesday night and is up to speed on the full game plan. I think there's a real chance like these guys rotate.
So do I. I also think it's insane. I mean, how do you not have interest in the Raiders defense even more hear me out, if Baker Mayfield plays? Because they can't, listen, it's not just that though. He signed on Tuesday, and I know they got him the playbook while he was on his flight there and everything, but this guy stinks when he knows a playbook in and out. And not only that, this offensive line has given up 42 sacks between Stafford, Perkins, and Walford this season. That's the most in the league. It's tied with Chicago. 42 sacks. Not only that, he has no pass catchers. There's no safety valve here. There's no guys that you can get the ball out to quick like Cooper Kupp and let him create yards after the catch. I mean, if Baker Mayfield starts this game, you're getting thrown into the depths of hell. Even though the Raiders defense isn't good, you still have Max Crosby. You still have guys that can get penetration, that can create pretty nasty pass rushes on this defense. Baker Mayfield could be in for an awful time if he's in this game and he's playing significant amount of reps.
Yeah, absolutely. So bringing it back to like the Matt Collins conversation, I think that this Rams quarterback, whoever it ends up being, right now I would presume Walford. That's what our projections presume. I think the ownership comes down throughout the day with this report again. I don't think ownership has been updated this morning, and this report came out 3 hours ago. So I would imagine there's an update here. And if we have any sort of projected timeshare, I imagine it will bump up Matt Collins in terms of ownership. But to your point on the defense, and I'm glad you brought this up, I have a lot of interest in captaining some of these ancillary Raiders players in large fields. And it starts with the defense. You broke down the situation beautifully on how they could get there. Very turnover quarterbacks. Like Wolford's not good either. We know Mayfield sucks.
Sure.
Well,
but Wolford at least knows the team.
That is true. That is true. He's been there for years. So, and Pelissero saying he's up to speed on the game plan. It's just not true. You can't get up to speed in 2 days.
It's 2 days.
It's not true. Anyway, so when we get beyond like Matt Collins, the defense stands out. It's a bit expensive. They did a good job with it. I think that keeps their ownership in check. Kicker, of course, makes a lot of sense. Carlson's at 4,200. And then you do have some ancillary players like a Foster Moreau, who I think could make sense in the captain spot for large field tournaments specifically tonight. He's expensive, but we're just looking for leverage plays here. And then one other thing that DraftKings did, which is an error. Why is Keelan Cole the stone minimum?
I don't know.
Like what?
Like you can legit go Jacobs captain, Devontae Adams, Derek Carr, Keelan Cole, right? And then,
yes.
And granted, people are going to be like, hey, he wasn't targeted last. I know. We both know that, but he's still on the field. And then you still have 4,100 per player. Like you could go Raiders defense and then punt a Rams player and still have all of the best players outside of Matt Collins in your lineup.
It's a tricky slate for that reason. And I think we run into a lot of duplication in the large field stuff because of the Keelan Coles. And there's a couple Rams guys at the Stoneman are damn near close to it, which is going to just create an avenue to play whoever you want. So that's one thing I'm worried about for large field, and why I do have interest in some of the guys like Foster Moreau and maybe even Keelan Cole himself. He's not necessary in the captain spot. The only reason you would do that is just the pure leverage angle at this point. So I'm looking at some of the other Raiders and trying to play some of them in the captain spot for large field just to differentiate. If you play Devontae Adams or Josh Jacobs, unless you do something wild, you're going to be duplicated in large field.
Exactly. Yeah. You're probably going to be duped in small field, to be honest.
True.
Like you said, unless you do, because the primary build is always going to be going to figuring out a way to get Jacobs and Adams first, right? Like and if you're just crunching lineups, you're going to get, have you crunched any lineups yet?
Yes.
Okay. Can we go over, are you crunching just like unadulterated lineups to see what you're getting?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. What did you get so far? As far as captain ownership goes, just highest exposed player.
It prefers Jacobs to Adams significantly. It was over 70% Jacobs, but you get Adams too. So you can clearly tell like these are going to be the two guys people click.
Okay. Right. It's going to be a lot. Now there is someone on the Rams that I actually do like today, and we'll talk about that. But before we do, is there anyone? I think we did a pretty good job here, not just breaking down the team, but kind of how this slate works. Because if we're not talking about how the whole slate actually, the whole game breaks down, it doesn't help just to be like, oh yeah, this player is good. Yeah, Josh Jacobs is good. Play him. I think we've gone over most of these Raiders that stand out. Like, of course, you can play Foster Moreau. He hasn't been super involved. The pecking order here is Jacobs and Adams. I think, obviously our tools like Jacobs a lot more than Adams. I think it's a little bit closer than that, but both of them are fantastic. Derek Carr, Matt Collins, then Foster Moreau. But those are skill players. I think the Raiders defense is also one of the better plays here on this slate. 5,200 is very reasonable. Do I want to captain them? That's tough. That can work if they have 2 defensive touchdowns and then they take their foot off the gas on offense. We've seen it happen many times in the past. I like them, I think, a little bit more in the flex spot, but I have no problem captaining them. I think that's pretty much, I think it's a pretty straightforward team.
Yeah, it is. And to the point on the really cheap guys, first of all, there's no reason Keelan Cole should be the min. He's a full-time player in the offense, or at least as close as you can be. And then they don't rotate. Foster Moreau plays almost every single snap. Last week, Jacob Hollister got 6 snaps. It's like, maybe you could throw Hollister in once in a while, just in large field for pure leverage, but it's the same thing at wide receiver. It's just Keelan Cole, Matt Collins, and Devonta Adams. DJ Turner, 3 snaps. It's the same thing at running back. Josh Jacobs, nearly every snap. Zamir White only played 4. Amir Abdullah, 12 in very specific situations. And then this team uses a fullback a lot. So Jacob Johnson, he'll siphon away some snaps from those really deep wide receivers and tight ends as well, which gives them even less viability. So very cut and dry with the Raiders.
Yeah, and it's the same thing. You may have mentioned it and I missed it. Same thing at tight end, though, with Foster Moreau as well. I think you did mention it. But, yeah, 90% of snaps. That's what I'm saying. You have 4 pass catchers, and one of them's Keelan Cole, and then you have Josh Jacobs. And like you said, maybe a little bit of Amir Abdullah, who gets an opportunity in the passing game or so. This team's not as difficult. I'd much rather deal with a team like this than the Kansas City Chiefs on the Showdown site. I know you enjoy those kind of games. I've had so much more success with teams like this because I think oftentimes people outthink themselves and they try and go crazy everywhere. Sometimes if you just get different in one spot, like, and as you said, maybe way different, might be the captain spot. It might be a flex spot. I'd rather do that than try and figure out which of 11 pass catchers is going to get the touchdowns for the Kansas City Chiefs. I hate Chiefs primetime games, but anyway, I digress. Let's talk about the Rams here. This is going to be fun. Before we do though, our sponsor, No House Advantage, doing big things over there, specifically when it comes to overlay. I bet you if Mike, who's producing the show, pulls it up right now, I bet you it's like 8% filled for today and won't get close to filled for their Showdown contest. I bet. What's it at, Mike? %2 right now. 2%, and it's still 10K up top. It might not be 500K like DraftKings, but who's turning down opportunities to make 5 figures when it's not even coming close to filling? Like, DraftKings, this is going to fill an hour before lock, and then they're going to be posting another one. There's no edge there. There's no free money opportunities over at draft. I mean, look, we still play that. We still love DraftKings and FanDuel in these sites, but at No House Advantage, it's an opportunity to make legitimate money. The link's in the description, the link's in chat. You're getting a $50 first match deposit bonus when you sign up. Not only that, all of our tools, we have Alex Baker, Awesemo himself, built the No House Advantage optimal lineup tool, the No House Advantage player prop projections. So you have everything at your disposal for free going into this. And of course, it's a sick format. You're just building lineups, but without salary, with props. Take the over, under. There's no juice. It's just the over or the under. You put them into the lineup. The ones you like the most go at the top. They get the most points, kind of like captain mode. The ones you like the least go at the bottom. They get the fewest points. You play against the field. You win money in contests that are overlaying like crazy right now. And they also have the play against the house, where if you hit all your picks, you 21x your entry. So lots of different formats there, lots of overlay, and lots of ways to win money where you're not going up. Plus, you're not going up against like these insane players either. You're going up against a much smaller field that isn't filled. So check it out. No House Advantage, sponsor the strategy show. If you haven't signed up yet, use the link in the description or in chat to get your $50 first match deposit bonus. All right, Matt, Rams. John Walford has the neck thing. I mean, I guess I assume he plays. Baker Mayfield, as we already talked about, is coming into this one after being signed on Tuesday, but hey, he knows the offense. Is there any way you can play a quarterback from the Rams today?
I think you can, gamble on Wolford if he starts, or, vice versa. If we get news that Wolford's out or he's there as the emergency backup or something, I think you can gamble on these Rams quarterbacks in large field stuff, but in small field, I just don't see there being any need to, really, because you can run essentially the 3-man stack of the expensive Raiders, Josh Jacobs, Devonta Adams, Derek Carr, and then you're already struggling with salary. So you can kind of just leave them off as salary-based concessions. I saw that in the chat earlier, made me laugh. So thanks for that comment. It said something like it quotes Matt Gajewski, you need to make salary-based concessions. You really actually don't on this slate, which is funny that it came up on this one. But yeah, for low risk and cash contests, I'm completely fine leaving out whoever starts at the Rams quarterback and then prioritizing the 3 expensive Raiders and jamming the value around it. For a large field is where it gets interesting. And this is something where I'm going to be closely monitoring reports, closely monitoring our ownership, because right now we have John Wolford projected as the clear starter. If we get news from like Schefter or something that the situation changes, they're going to use both, our projections will change. And then I might take a shot on one of these guys in large field tournaments if they come in with no ownership. Right now, Wolford is still decently owned in our projections, which makes sense. He's a quarterback. So I think my current tendency is to fade entirely, damn near close to it, but we'll watch this throughout the day. I definitely don't feel good about playing one of them. It would be a leverage play purely.
Agreed. The one spot that I do kind of still like here is Cam Akers, just because while he's not exciting by any stretch of the imagination, and I've been on record saying I just don't think Cam Akers is that great. I remember chat trying to excoriate me for that, Matt. I think it was actually you and me on a show.
Yep, it was. We definitely was.
Yeah. And you had actually tweeted about it later that day because he had like 10 carries for a yard or something. Granted, the offensive line isn't good either, but 72% of snaps last week. What a journey it's been. What a saga it's been for Cam Akers this year. You know, he comes in game 1. Remember Sean McVay afterwards, like he has to earn it. We all thought everyone thought he was going to be the guy. And then he plays, you know, whatever, splitting with Daryl. Well, actually, no, he's playing second fiddle to Henderson for the next 4 weeks. Then he just doesn't play because he doesn't want to be on the team anymore. And they're like, we don't know what to do with this guy. Then he comes back, plays sparingly. And now Henderson was released and Akers is playing 72% of snaps in week 13. So it has come full circle here. As much as I'm not a fan of his, I'm sure he's a great person, but as much as I'm not a fan of rostering him in most cases, they only threw to him once last game, but it was also competitive throughout. The game never got out of hand. I think he probably still is the easiest lock for opportunities and to score. I'm not saying he scores. I'm saying to project that out. Like Cam Akers is the one guy that you can at least be like, yeah, he's going to get opportunities today.
I personally think all of the expensive Rams are going to be fairly contrarian because everyone's going to be jamming the expensive Raiders. So maybe if you can make this work with a Cam Akers style player, the 3 expensive Raiders, and then get contrarian in your last 2, that could work. Or if you play a guy like Cam Akers at the expense of maybe a Derek Carr or something like that, that could be another way to be contrarian specifically. But ultimately with Akers, you always have to worry about the potential timeshare here. Kyron Williams did play. He did not play much, but he's a smaller back. He plays in very specific roles. That was a disgusting game against Seattle that they just played. If this were to like get out of hand, let's say Vegas gets up by like 2 scores, I think you do see more Kyron. He profiles as a pass catching back. He's small. He's like a scat back, good pass protector. So that's always a worry with Akers. But ultimately the spread here is still within a touchdown. So you would think moderate game script through at least most of it. So I'm fine with him. There's going to be questions with every single Ram you play. So it's like, I can't come out here and be like, okay, a lot of questions with Cam Akers. Literally every single player on the Rams, especially their skill position players, we can make that argument.
Right. And it's not like Van Jefferson or Higbee. It's not like they're cheap either. Van Jefferson and Higbee are north of 6K. So that doesn't exactly help us a whole lot. Like Ben Skoranek and Tutu Atwell, we don't even know if Lance McCutcheon's going to play or Brandon Powell. What happens if all of those guys are active, right? Like because we know Robinson, Kupp on the IR, but what if you have Atwell and Powell, Jefferson's obviously healthy, McCutcheon and Ben Skoranek, what if all of them are active? Because in week 12, Skoranek played 63% of snaps, Jefferson 87, Powell 48, Tutu Atwell played 52%, and Lance McCutcheon played 48%. That's 5 different receivers, all of whom, and not to mention Higbee played 59% of snaps tonight. That's 6 different pass catchers who, for all intents and purposes, are not going to inspire you, especially when there's a bunch of them on the field rotating in and out.
And I do think it is a large rotation. They did lose that game by 16 points. It was against the Chiefs. It was not quite as far as maybe you'd think, but still it was a further margin of defeat compared to their last game. But like you mentioned, there was a lot of injuries. Ultimately, I do think you see a rotation here just because of the kind of players you have. Like, they're all role players. Ben Skowronek's best asset is blocking, which is not something you ever want to hear for a wide receiver. Tutu Atwell is about 160-pound slot receiver. He just flat out cannot play on every single play. McCutcheon and Brandon Powell are built actually more like legitimate NFL receivers. It's just a talent issue. And then you have Van Jefferson, who's not going to come off the field. I think the safest play is Jefferson here. He is a bit expensive for the role he'll play tonight and the potential projection you'll see. But at the end of the day, you have to play a Ram. And I think he's my favorite one to get to. They're going to be losing. They're going to be throwing a lot. Vegas actually does not have a good pass defense. So I do think their pass rush gets home, but you look at the Raiders, they're 30th in total yardage allowed through the air per game to their opponents. So you could pass on this defense a little bit. If the game plan with Sean McVay is just creative enough, maybe you see production from 1 or 2 of these guys. I think it's Jefferson 1 for me, Skowronek 2, and then maybe Higbee 2. I don't know. I'm having a lot of trouble between Skowronek and Higbee, but I think those are very clearly the 3 you want to get to.
It's still ugly, though.
It is.
Let's take a couple super chats. Thanks, guys. Sam Pierce, thoughts on Tutu Atwell as captain for large field?
I think it's fine. He's going to play a fair amount. I don't think he sees a lot more than 50% of the snaps. When they go into 12 personnel, he's off the field. When they use maybe 2 running backs or a fullback or anything weird, it's Atwell off the field. He's locked into the slot, can't do anything else. So he for sure is not going to play 100% of the snaps, but he also might be their most explosive playmaker. They spent 2nd-round draft capital on him. God knows why, but they did. And he's like a kick returner, so maybe you see something there. There's at least enough upside to talk yourself into it, but as the question mentions, it's certainly a large field captain.
I do agree with you, though, because he had 4 rushing attempts last game.
Yeah, he's like a really, really poor man's Debo.
Yeah. Homeless Debo.
He's actually more like a poor man's Tavon Austin because of the size.
He's a vagrant Debo Samuel. He doesn't. There's no roof over that head. Yeah, pretty much. But, 9 opportunities last game, whatever. Raiders defense collectively isn't that great. Look, this isn't to say that the Rams can't put up some points. They have an 18.5-point total. Usually you'd scoff at that and just avoid it on a main slate. But like, there are teams this week with really, really low total. I mean, I think let me see here. The Houston Texans have 14.5. The Rams have a higher total by 2 points than the Bucks this week. How about that, Matt?
Yeah, that's like pretty crazy, actually.
Yeah, they have the 6th lowest total on the slate. So yeah, higher than the Bucks, or sorry, on the week. Higher than the Jets, higher than the Broncos. Broncos at 17.5 is insane. They should be at 7.5. Baltimore at 17.5. So yeah, they still can score some points here. It might be ugly. Going to be tough to figure out who it's going to be, but they can certainly score some points. And by some points, I mean, maybe they get a couple touchdowns or, 17 or whatever, but I just don't know with these pass catchers. I think Atwell makes the most sense to, like, I can't justify maybe talk me into this, Matt. Large field tournaments captaining someone like Ben Skowronek. I know he played almost every snap last game, but I mean, he's so lacking in explosive ability that you're going to need a touchdown, and you're going to either need just insane busted coverage where everyone falls down like bowling pins. I'm just having a tough time figuring out how he gets there.
I think one of the reasons would be leverage, of course, but 2, he brings you into a different roster construction just because of his price. So, I mean, if you captain like Van Jefferson or Tyler Higbee, I still think you're probably too close to the chalk captain builds. But once you get down to like Skowronek at 4,800, obviously price difference in the captain spot, you do get a different build and you need to play a Ram. So if things are funneled to him, could make sense. Honestly, I think I'd rather go even cheaper and take a shot on some of like the Tutu Atwells, or if you go really far down there, you could play like Lance McCutcheon, assuming he's active, the Stone Min, and then just jam all the studs around him. You're probably playing a Rams quarterback or Cam Akers or something in that instance as well. But, for low risk contests, when you're jamming in Rams pass catchers, it's kind of like the Patriots the last time we talked about them. I would rather just pay down because it's going to be a rotation. What's the difference really between Ben Skowronek and Lance McCutcheon if they're both active? Very little. And you can pay 200 for McCutcheon. You got to pay 4,800 for Ben Skowronek. You can include Van Jefferson in this. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to pay up in low risk contests. For a large field, like you mentioned, the best argument you can make is leverage.
Yeah, right. But I'm with you. With so much uncertainty, maybe just take the cheaper out. Like I'd rather have Tutu Atwell over Skowronek at captain. I think in any format, really. I think I would.
Yeah, it's close for sure. I think Skowronek plays more, but the thing is, you have to look at like opportunities on the field, and they value Skowronek as a blocker. I don't know why. And then they actually like design stuff for Atwell because he's explosive. You mentioned the carries, like they'll design stuff for Atwell. So even though he doesn't play as much as Skowronek, I'm not sure that matters in the overall opportunity of the offense.
We talked about this on Monday, and I think, not an apples to apples comparison, but where we both, came to the agreement that we'd rather have Rashid Shaheed over Adam Troutman, not because we're projecting a lot more volume, but just because there seems to be a higher ceiling there. And I think you could actually say something similar this week about Tutu Atwell and Ben Skowronek, just because of how they're trying to deploy Atwell in this offense and get him involved in different ways.
I agree with you.
All right, man, we're making good time on this one. It's straightforward for Las Vegas, and it's straightforward for the Rams in that who the hell knows? John Jefferson with a super chat. Thanks for all you do, boys. This is the best Showdown content out there. Good luck in your cage match this week, Dave. Thanks. Yeah, I was on with Al yesterday doing the cage match. It was a lot of fun, actually. Check that out if you guys haven't yet. But yeah, thanks, man. And then we had a super chat from Fresca. Are the Rams better with Ben Skowronek or Brian Scalabrine?
Give me Scalabrine.
Yeah,
I'd rather see Scalabrine out there.
How big is he?
6'10", I think.
He's
big.
Just post him up. Let him take a few offensive pass interference. You let him knock some fellas around out there.
I'd love to see Scalabrine out there.
All right. So should we build a lineup? This is the quickest I think we've ever done a Showdown strategy show in all the years.
Yeah. I mean, if you have a question, of course, ask it. The last thing I'll say before we build a lineup is like, there's a little bit of funkiness with tight end. Like Bryson Hopkins had that 41% snap share game. Higbee was at 59. So there's like very little noise there. It's not like they increased their usage of 12 personnel or anything weird. Like I think it's going to be Higbee on the field for as many snaps as he can handle more often than not. So I don't even have a lot of interest with Hopkins, but just a name to mention. I'd watch who was active for the Rams because of the McCutcheon injury. You might be able to get some leverage because there's going to be like a late news component to the McCutcheon versus Austin Trammell dynamic. McCutcheon was out last week. So I would watch the very cheap Rams pass catchers just before the slate locks tonight and see who's active and where you might be able to gain some leverage.
We had a question from earlier asking, would you go like 5-1 build, obviously 5-1 Raiders Ram with Akers as the one-off? Yes, I think you definitely can. But it also said, would you do it with the kicker? So with Matt Gay as the one-off. Matt Gay's been awesome this year. Like he's a legitimately good kicker. If they can get into range, yeah, it's just, this is one of those weird games, Matt, where like, does it get out of hand and then you stop kicking field goals? But 6.5 points. It's not 17 points like the Houston Dallas game. It's 6.5 points. Last week was the Seattle Seahawks were bet up to 8 at one point. and that game came down to the final drive. It's football. Weird things happen. I don't think it's insane to think Matt Gay could have a decent performance tonight at all. I have no issues with him.
Yeah, number one optimal lineup is 5 Raiders and Matt Gay.
There you go. There you go. I think it'll be popular, by the way. I don't think that's going to be, a contrarian build. How about this? Before we build a lineup, what do you think are the best ways to get contrarian? The best ways to maybe get different without being stupid, right? Because it's so easy to be like, man, I'm way different here. And you're looking at a lineup, you just got no chance this wins. Like there's a dramatic difference between getting different and contrarian, where you also give, and that's where the boom bust tool comes into play, by the way. That's where, us having a tool like this, where it's giving you the top play probability. Jacobs and Adams, by the way, make up 77% of that. Gives you the ownership at captain, at utility optimal percentage, the leverage score that Matt's been referencing throughout this show. Like all of that stuff for showdowns is massive. 3 free days, by the way, if you want to get in on that. And the BetMGM promo that we still have going is 2 free months. 2 free months in the description. How do you not take advantage of that, Matt, with 2 free months of all of our tools?
That's a ridiculous offer. It's like over $200 value. I don't know what is it?
$240 value. And all you do is deposit $10 and put it on any bet with the link.
It should be honestly valued higher than that because the tools are very, very good and they'll help you make more money than that.
I know. Oh, and it's $1,000 up to $1,000 risk-free bet. So if you have more than $10 to spare, you take advantage of that because any bet you lose, you're getting it back, all the money back in free bets. No joke. It's awesome. And it's all of our tools, not just football. So if you've done it already and you just wanted to do like 3 free days, but if MGM's available to you, $10, you have to use the link or we can't find you. It's in the description and in chat. $10, put it down, put it on any game you want. And do you have any spots you like for college basketball tonight?
Yeah, I bet Michigan -4.5.
Okay. I was laying 6 on the Raiders. It's at 6.5 now. I still think it's viable, but all of that, whatever you want to bet, it doesn't matter. After it settles, you're getting 2 free months of Stokastic plus Platinum. Just use the link in the description or in chat and get all those tools. But Matt, I digress. When you're talking about being able to get different here, are there any ways that you think are smart ways to do it that could differentiate you? Maybe even in small field tournaments, like the ones that we're going to build a lineup for, where you're not going crazy, but you're still doing something that makes sense and is differentiating you a little bit.
I think double punt might actually get you a little different today. So that means like Keelan Cole from the Raiders at 200 and then playing one of McCutcheon or Trammell. When you just build lineups and you use Jacobs, Adams, and Carr, unless you go all the way back up to Matt Collins, you're not going to be using the full salary. So if you go Jacobs, Adams, Carr, in whatever order, whichever captain, then you play 2 min guys, Keelan Cole and Trammell. We already know they're going to be on the field a lot. And then you just don't go up to Matt Collins. You're going to be differentiated in terms of salary left on the board. And you play 2 punt guys. Like I think a lot of people are going to play 1 and then play a kicker. So that makes sense. And then the other way is just to play an expensive ramp. Nobody's going to be playing. Maybe they'll play the quarterbacks if we get news. We'll see. But you're not going to see anything on Skowronek, Higbee, Akers, at least not anything substantial. So I think just flipping the build a little bit, playing an expensive ram could be something you look at too.
I like that. Let's try it out. Want to do the $50 single entry that we usually build for?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. I started on Monday. You start today at captain.
All right, let's go Adams. I like Jacobs a lot, but our tools have him in like all of the optimals. I think we can go Adams.
Okay. Yeah. Adams has a 30% top play probability in our boom bust tool. 47% for Jacobs, but still those are monster numbers for both of them. Yeah, let's go. Okay. So Devontae Adams, I'm going to keep this simple and see where else we can get different. I'm just going to go Josh Jacobs in here. I think 2 guys that are seeing massive opportunity shares on the same team deserve to be 1 and 2 in this lineup.
All right, let's go Derek Carr.
Derek Carr. Okay. So this is where we'll begin to get into the weeds a little bit here for sure. I'm I'm going to go Raiders defense.
I think that's going to be contrarian too. I mentioned running optimals this morning. You aren't getting them. You're getting kickers, but once you get up to like the Raiders defense price range, you have to make some sort of concession where I think this is a spot where we could actually play, Raiders and then some punts and then keep it relatively contrarian. So from there,
and I think with this clown show operation at quarterback right now, listen, I'm just calling a spade a spade. We have no idea what's going on. Baker Mayfield really does get significant opportunity. Maybe he shocks the world, but right now it doesn't look good. So Adams, Jacobs, Carr, Raiders, 1,500 per player remaining. Pick is yours, Matt.
We'll go Keelan Cole, and this build's not honestly hard to find players you like. 1,500 remaining doesn't look attractive, but there's so many punts, not worried about it at all.
And I kind of like it because we don't have Matt Collins, but at least you're throwing Cole in there who, which makes this a little interesting. That gives us 2,800 left. So we're not going to get
we have to use a Ram though.
I know. So we're not going to get that. You're right. We're not going to get to Akers or Hollins or Foster Moreau here. What do you think of Brandon Powell if he plays?
He's fine. He's like the same thing as Atwell, McCutcheon, Trammell. They basically all play 50% of the snaps. Well, I think he'll be the least owned of the group, probably, with the Q tag.
Yeah, I think so. And listen, week 13, he had 3 rushing attempts in that game as well. He had 7 opportunities. Not bad. And he caught all 4 of his targets. So he's at least, giving. If you got 10 from Brandon Powell, you'd be absolutely delighted.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. I kind of like it. Adams, Jacobs, Carr, Raiders, Cole, Powell. In a smaller field tournament, I'm not sure how popular that lineup's going to be.
I think we did a good job for small field GPP.
Me too. All right. Hey, Matt's over at Twitter at Matt_Gajewski. He's on Odd Shopper, all of his college basketball picks. You got him over in the premium Discord with all those additional picks as well. Any updates that he wants to give you guys, super helpful stuff. That link's down there as well. I'm at Loughy_D, LOUGHY_D. My betting video for tonight's game is already up. I put it out Tuesday if you guys are looking to get a jump on some of these games. And then picks for every game for week 14 I'll have out tomorrow afternoon. Anything else going on, Matt, that the people should know about before we head out?
We're going to have a ton of coverage for bowl content. We're kind of in the little college football lull here before they start, just Army and Navy this weekend. We're going to have coverage for every single bowl once they get going next week. So make sure to watch for that.
Oh, and my friends, we 74 likes. We still got 400 people in here. Come on, show some love, atone for your sins. Get us up to 100 before you head out. And for all you guys that are going to watch after the fact, appreciate you as well. Good luck tonight, guys. We'll see you back here for Live Before Lock, NBA Strategy Show coming up right after this. Peace.